Face cancer! Prøv lige at sende vinduet til dig. Ja, det er mig, og Tobias. Jeg er klog. Det er sådan en dynamisk størrelse her på tiden. Det er sådan her i London. Eller noget. Ja, så ja. Den kan være nemmere herinde. Ja, sådan her. Prøv at se sådan her. Sådan der, så vi bare dreje.
Skal jeg have hangout?
Det er klart.
Skal jeg have den hangout?
Nå, det kan godt, man skal det.
Også.
Så gik du ikke glip af noget?
Hvis det er Google, så er det
Altså, ikke kommer også andre. Jo, den jeg synes, den er meget god. Jeg øver mig i at være sådan her. Det går ikke så godt. Det prøver at være lidt wrong måde en gang. Vi prøver en mærkelig konstellation i dag, som er mig og Tobias. Og vi ser, om vi kan få det til at spille. Det bliver sådan lidt on the fly. Og så hvis sådan er det jo bare, ikke? Hvis du regner til den, kan ikke se nu. Det kan ikke blive helt sindssygt, ikke?
Det er ikke så slemt med kontrasten der.
Jeg glæder mig sygt meget. Altså, vi kan
alligevel prøve at komme
lidt mere op.
Hvis vi gør alle bevægelser til spejlvendt, så er det lidt småskært.
Ja.
Det må da være en udstilling for det.
Ellers så kan du lige få den her. Så er det måske lidt nemmere.
Ja, det er sådan.
Hvad skal der være på skærmen nu? Er der sådan nogle slides eller hvad med?
Der skal være... Jamen, der kommer slides, blandt andet. Men den er godt nok lige... Det er autofokus. Nå, den er også lige kommer her.
Kan vi få det der preview til?
Ja.
Vi kan prøve at...
Ja, man. Fedt.
Feeder lidt. Det feeder lidt.
Ja, men det er fordi, du skal slukke noget lyd. Sådan. Kan du prøve at sætte et slide på, Sune? Jeg synes, at vi kan se teksten. Sådan, som du gerne vil præsentere det. Det er sådan, det gør det større. Ja. Vil du ikke prøve at sætte det op, som det skal præsenteres? Det er selvfølgelig ikke meget, det først. Det var med i forhold til, hvordan kameraet skal stå.
Kan ikke bare stå, så man kan se det hele på skærmen?
Det er det, vi arbejder på.
Okay. Det er også, at det kan blive set. Hvad er det, du hedder med det? Det kan jeg se.
Er det sådan der?
Det er sagtens stretch lidt. Jeg skal bare lige have et billede, der ikke er spejlvendt.
Ja.
Så,
Jeg tror ikke, det er fint nok på streamen.
Det er det.
Hey, velkommen til.
Tak. Det er bare lavet sådan, at man sidder og kigger på skærmen. Så er det bedst bare at spejle på den modtager.
Nå ja, jeg skal bare have et preview, så jeg kan lave, det er muligt ikke kamera, når det ikke er mig.
Så man kunne have det måske en gang hver halv måned.
Fine forhold, mand. Fine forhold.
Ja, det er super.
Ja, jeg tror, det kommer til at være ret meget. Det kommer meget til at køre. Ja,
Sådan der, så er det meget godt.
ja. Eventuelt kan man dreje sig lidt, så det der kommer ud, og så får du mere på det.
Det passer også helt godt til den frem. Så vil jeg lige klart komme til. Hvad var det, der sagde der?
Det var min arm.
Okay. Det lyder som om, at jeg taler om den.
Ja, jeg skal lige have billede på, ellers jeg tror, det er værd.
Det første, der sker, det er, at man
Projekterne røg lige af.
Jeg tror ikke meget gensagt computeren.
Ah, okay.
Sådan så
Hvor mange har virkelig noget lys på dem på panelet?
Ja, det kan vi få.
De er meget mørke.
Det kan vi nok ikke. Jeg synes, det var det. Ja, og der er selvfølgelig en evaluering. Ja, det gør det.
Nej, det er ikke taget sådan. Vores kamera siger, at så står på skærmen, og man står der klar.
det skal nok være.
Fordi vi sender det fra webcamer fra rigtige webcams. Fra sådan. Ja, præcis. Nej, det er altid faktisk et meget ofte problem, det der med at have billeder med noget fra en skærm, og så noget, der er rundt i skærmen. Så det er så refererer til skærmen.
Nu har vi til det, og man kan gerne se det.
Ja,
jeg skal meget godt.
altså, jeg har godt lide at starte det ret kongen. Det er meget kort tid,
Det var noget på, så jeg kan se det. Kan det stande det der? Det er ikke noget i kraft.
Ikke noget mand S. Og skure.
Kan du se igen? Jeg tror, det er god screen.
Så det er der, der er i gang med at producere en EP sammen med
Du flytter klart over det længere.
og skal det være klar, og så tager jeg de værktøjer.
Så er der ikke så meget der.
Hey! Det skal være det.
Hey! Hey! Welcome, Andrew.
Indrøm det. Det der, det er fucking 4D-plads, er det?
Om det er bare den hurtigste måde for mig, så du søger det.
Ja, jeg ved det noget af. Jeg kender de bevæggrunde, det er derfor, jeg synes, det er sjovt. Ja.
Jeg lukker det ikke, så det er men jeg synes, det var dramatisk.
Og den her, I vil ikke bruge den her?
Jeg tror, der er virkelig på den der. Ellers skal vi komme hernede. Flemming, vi kan sætte den hernede. Det bliver lidt banet.
Så bliver det det vil være lidt opsat, så kommer du bare en modlys.
Jamen, det er mere for at lyset fra skærmen og lyset fra os.
Jeg kan bare få stille lampe eller lyserværk. Det er også skærmen.
Nej, men lyset nogenlunde.
Det vil være kontra.
Så vil det
være så ændrer der bilen på vinduet.
De skal også have noget at se på. Ja, det er det. Man kan også nok justere brightness på den.
bare have
Det var lige den her tid,
Jeg skal bare have det fra så er der ro, så laver
Det der skal vi prøve at gå for. Det der disco. Ja. Epilepsi. Vi skal alle have det sammen her.
Og så er det første uge.
Ja, vi har spillet ikke der. Vi strød rundt til noget.
Det er jo ikke så fedt at vise en gang.
Ja, det er også fuldmænd. Altså. Ja, det er det.
Det er også bare altid, hvis det er gået lidt foran.
Ja, produktionshøjre godt. Der må man til at lave dopen.
Det gode er, så kan man også få sådan et reface. De herrer, kunne jo også begrænse os til den nederste del af streamen.
Jeg tænker også mere,
Så vi kan skære det meget mere til os.
Sker der noget nu? Sker der noget? Eller er det det samme?
når det går så lang tid.
Det er ikke nok, tror jeg. Jeg vil prøve at skyde med råd til det, prøve at skyde nok lidt op til det her. Så du bouncer. Det giver faktisk noget.
Det der ser ret godt.
Der står bare her med det.
Ja, det gør også. Ej, det kunne jo godt lave noget tilsvarende på, hvis du stiller den op på bordet.
Jeg var nødt til at
Det giver faktisk nok.
Hvis du selv bare holder den der timer der.
Det er sjovt, det du tyder.
Man kan godt sige, at det man skulle bedømme nogle dumme.
Jeg tror, det var godt.
Det var sådan, at vi er selv engageret det store baseområde. Altså, det var en der kollektiv ting, ikke?
Men lige nu rammer du meget langt.
Men de nok ikke skal men hvor der bliver nok
Få det lidt til der.
det er fuldstændig tak. Det er også det, kan komme derned, jeg kan ikke lide, men hvorfor? Nej, hvor ikke det er sådan en plads væk. Okay, det er typisk det, jeg kommer til at gøre. Det gør det ikke sådan en overskud til at hoppe ud. Det er bare sådan, nej, det gør det også meget fint. Ja, jeg ved, om jeg kommer.
Jeg tænker på, at
Og så har jeg
Men er det fordi den er står og spiser?
og der er bare
det er ikke så godt.
hele tiden.
Nej. Men der er noget, jeg skal se, om vi kan finde et program, hvor den bare står på den faste.
Helt stadig. Man skal virkelig bare lige ja.
det kunne måske også findes der. Lige nu, jeg må prøve at se. Lige nu. Jeg mener nemlig, at
Kan man nå lige at kværne en cigaret?
Ja, selvfølgelig. Hvem hedder Steffen? Hej Steffen, Rasmus.
Er det dig, der er en kurator eller hvad?
Ja, det kan man godt sige.
Ja, så det er dig, der er certificeret able instructor. Præcis.
Og det skal vi totalt meget slå mere om bagefter. Men fordi vi holder også en nyhedspause, hvor vi rækker op. Så der var bare lige nogen, der foreslog. Så der blev lige sat sådan en streaming-ting i værk. Så okay, fint mand. Altså,
Hvordan fanden gør I det?
Det gør vi faktisk lige nu. Men gå ind i hedder på din cigaret, så vi starter med et øjeblik. 5 minutter eller sådan noget. Kigger bare. Ja. Jeg har Ja. Yeah, man. Andrew, what are you doing in the back? Do you want us to come to you, or?
Yeah, these are the best cheers.
Maybe we should put those in trumpets.
Det er den bedste måde. Eller hvad der snakker om?
Mads spørger bare.
They cut some of my so I'm healing.
Good. Good. You were in Hi, I'm Andrew. You're in outer space, my son.
Det er bare sådan en mænd.
Alright. Double up. Painkillers every 4 hours.
Did they give you some good? Did they give you some
Yeah, I was able to come down here. Hit the push.
Det er rigtigt. Det er fandme det lyder nogen, der er rigtigt.
Non-sugar ice cream.
Are you still in that restriction?
Rasmus har din søn.
No.
Ja, jeg har din søn.
Dang. Flushing my
Det var
mouth
ikke for at være sådan, hey,
3 times a day. Get the bacteria serious.
Jeg er lidt optaget.
Hvad er status på jer?
What now?
Wait.
Have you had your wisdom?
Hvad er status på jer?
Ja, vi har sådan
You had
Lad os starte om,
Yeah, that's what's the problem right now.
That's what. Okay.
Hvad er det, vi gør lige?
So I have
Really?
Nu skal vi tænke, der sidder 8 mennesker og lytter på jer lige nu.
Hej 8 mennesker.
You do the surgery while you're sleeping.
Behøver ikke den her med dig?
Now that morning I woke up and I had a bowl of cereal.
Er det telefon måske?
And you're not supposed to eat before they gas you.
Har I fået kaffe? Har I fået sodavand?
And so I had the whole time while they're like pulling the teeth. It was yeah, it was terrible.
All 4.
At once.
Okay, shit.
Yeah, it was.
So you're like laying down for 2 weeks?
Yeah, I was out for like.
Godt, der er ikke nogen af os, der sådan er sorte, fordi så ser man lige med en lige på grund af lys.
Jeg gør mit bedste.
Mange siger, at jeg kan klare det helt uden hvordan først.
Ja.
Så det er jo en force. You need a storm, man.
Everything's going like
Really fast.
Yeah.
Good. That's
you know the place where I met him in the job center. I'm hired there now. I don't know if that's they hired me to do courses on copyrights, and they give me like 1,000 kroner for 2 hours of whatever copyrights.
That's great.
I choose what to talk about. Hey,
Like once a week, twice a week, something like
once
that.
a week.
Nice.
It's just like what the fuck.
That's perfect.
Yeah.
That's great.
That's where I met him. Like,
Is he taking your course?
yeah, I came to my course. Yeah, that's funny. So nice. I came in like, hey.
That's great. That's awesome. Have you started your class here?
On Wednesday.
Wednesday. Okay.
It
It's like,
should
I
have
think it
been
starts.
last Wednesday, but
Så ja, du,
my two
altså,
shit
du
up.
repræsenterer
That's not.
I postponed it.
That's not how you would be teaching.
i sådan en abstrakte form.
Du siger bare til, at du vil have det kørt, så skal jeg nok...
Yeah.
Cool fun cup. Okay.
Sure.
Bowl.
Bowl.
Yeah. L.
Earl. Oh, you're good.
Yeah, I'm getting better.
Earl. It's like Earl. The name. Earl.
Yeah.
But without the
Ja, det er så. Vi kan nærme at snakke, så kan vi få...
Altså, jeg har ikke lyst til
Og
at
mens vi
snakke.
snakker, så kan vi lige spørge, er der nogen herinde, der ikke forstår dansk?
Ja, det er der.
This should be in English. Anyone here not speaking, understanding Danish? Okay.
Am I the only one?
Then we'll do it in English because that's also for the web stream.
Okay.
The lowest common denominator.
That's what I'm used to.
Excellent.
Oh, that means we're going. Oh, damn, that sound. That's like a trigger. Ja, Rasmus, take it away, son!
Okay, fedt. Er I klar?
Ja.
Okay. Nu skal vi se om den her er klar. Alright, hello to everyone on the stream. If you have any questions, you are more than welcome to put them in on the question module, which is on the left side of the screen. then I'll try to see if I can fit it in at some point, because we would like to invite you to join the debate, as well as everyone who is here. So first of all, let's just make some noise so we can hear that there's people here. Okay. Awesome. This is the sound and vision debate, which came about. Uh-oh.
Echo.
There's some small feed. I don't know if someone has their turn on. Okay. So yeah, the idea came from these guys who are sitting in the debate panel, and the only reason they're sitting here is that there's something beautiful to look at for everyone who is sitting out there, because the debate is open to everyone who wants to participate, and we have some topics that we will be discussing. So please, if you have anything to add to the debate, we do the arm system, and I will do the best to moderate. And we have the first comment here.
Yeah, I'll just like to add that at first we'll begin with a presentation of the three of us here, and we have three different backgrounds or approaches to this subject today. So during the presentation, I don't think it makes much sense to be, and then we aim to make them very short. So keep the questions to the debate program down here.
Yes.
We didn't put times on them because then we haven't been.
From the program that was on the event, that's how we will follow it. And yes, the debate starts after the presentation. So yeah, we have this panel, and it's Sune Petersen from Notasong. It's Andreas Wellerberg from Copenhagen Laptop Orchestra, Københavns Laptop Orchestra. And it's Per Bæk Hansen from Plug Out Festival. And from here on, they will do the rest of their own presentation. Thank you. Woo!
I'd like to start by, before I introduce myself, is that I feel, after having spent many years doing visuals, that it's possible to do better, and I think we all agree that us doing better and integrating sound and vision better, and not just for specialized audiovisual acts, but in general for musicians that anyway do quite often have visuals along with it, will create better experiences both for us as performers and also for the audience watching our performances. So first, a little bit about myself. I've been doing visuals for the past, I think, 17 years or so. Began out using slide projectors in the late 90s, and often as many as possible. And I have been projecting onto stuff before we had mapping. Then you just basically project onto whatever geometry you want to project onto, and then it usually looks quite cool. And also been doing some mappings. Once that got hot, and almost stopped doing mappings again. And in this process, I have mostly been performing to various people's music. And from the very beginning, I set out to figure out that, or very early on, I got a copy of this fantastic software called VJam that Coca made in the late 90s, early 2000s. Yeah. And basically it's a video sampler where you can sample video clips. And quite quickly, a friend and I figured out that that was not very complicated, and there were some limitations in the version of VJam that we could afford, so that we couldn't run very high resolution. So quite quickly, we began making our own software to perform. And in the beginning, we just basically made a clone of VJam and then used various video clips. But as time progressed, it has shifted, and my friends stopped working on it, got married and children, and his dream job in another part of the country. So it has begun to working a lot more with generative video, and especially for my part, I'm very interested in and really like all the things you get for free when using video feedback, the chaotic behavior of it. So firstly because it's more interesting for me to actually program my own instrument to do visuals, do synthetic video, but also because if you want to perform visuals using video clips, that can be brilliant and is amazing, but it takes a heck of a lot of work to do it good. And to do it, you need a lot of content to be able to fill out, for instance, an hour. Also because people are used to looking at music videos that are really tightly, very cut in sync with the music, and that is very difficult to achieve live, especially when you, as I have been doing, have been performing with random musicians, and one day it's techno, the other is drum and bass, then it's some weird neoclassical performance, and then it's some jazz, and yeah, I've been performing to many things. Anything from really conventional club music to symphonic orchestras and weird jazz ensembles. I mean, literally anything. So the point was that I needed an instrument where I could express myself to fit whatever music was there without much preparation. And the most recent incarnations of that has been this one. This is not yet public, and it is on, sorry, that's on video.
Full screen that stuff.
Full screen that stuff, of course. This is me with DJ Bell at Bono Festival a couple of weeks ago. Yeah, we'll let that buffer. I have another one which might also be quite super long. I'll show some of this. Oh, this is quite. This is from Science and Cocktails, and this is a friend of mine, Jakob Schmidt, making music and me doing visuals. And this is a bit special, where I'm actually generating some geometric figures from a very primitive particle systems and generating geometry from that, and then a feedback loop on top. And it has been very stretched, and the music was very ambient and slowly evolving. So my visuals are very ambient and slowly evolving too. I attempt jumping here. I think it's too. And I think from popular request, I will base my performance tonight on this patch. And another one here where this one doesn't want to participate. Do I have it here? Sorry, everything has been really, really quickly prepared here. Videos, documentation. Yes, here it is. Here it is. I like this recording a lot because you can hear the sound, the light guys being impressed with my visuals, commenting on it. And here I am again using a lot of video feedback. It's up there. It's very difficult to see. It's quite dark here. But I also have a Kinect 3D camera filming people, so I'm basically having people coming into it. So it's actually people standing down here in front of the stage that are on the visuals live. Yeah, I think that is that, and we don't need this one. This here, and besides this kind of music, I have been doing this, which is basically making. This is a kind of a side thing to this, but then again not. this is an instrument where I've made a drum machine where I use electromechanical kitchen devices to make sound, and then I also have some lights to do that. But this is a situation where actually sound and music is created in the same process. And especially if you hear the sounds from the radios over here, then it's directly noise from the fluorescent tubes into the radio that generates the noise that comes from them. And I've also made other installations based on that. And this is where part of where my quest for making more, how do you say, sound and visuals in the same process has come to. And the latest incarnation of that is this thing that I call deuterium. And I have found a way to basically just sample the image and translate that directly into sound. And I have progressed a bit from this, but this is secret for now. And what this is basically, I am translating the pixels along the diagonal of the image into an audio waveform and playing that back as a wavetable in a wavetable synthesizer set at a certain frequency. And it sounds like this. This video is available online, so I will stop here and you can see more. It's also the performance I did at the opening of Rumkraft. So my statement, and a little bit provocative, is that for today is that as a visualist, I don't feel that musicians are very much aware of what goes on the screen while performing. Quite often they stand with their front to the audience and the image is behind them, so they have no option of responding to the visuals. And I have been doing visuals for now, didn't I say 17 years or so, and 4 times in that time, over 17 years, I have experienced that a musician was able to respond to what I did as a visualist. So where we could play together. And this, I think, when you're playing music, it's very normal to respond to each other, both when you have songs that you have rehearsed a lot of times and can ping pong, and you can have a bit like a dialogue between 2 instruments and all that. And especially when you have improvised music, it's very important that musicians listen to each other to be able to perform the best and communicate best and move the performance in the direction. And I really want to do that too. I want to affect the musicians so that when they're playing too boring, I can affect them through my visuals. So it seems like it's quite an afterthought.
What happened those 4 times?
Well, actually I can only remember the 2 of them. But one was at a dance improvisation festival in Sweden, where I had, I think, 3 projectors that projected out into the whole room, and a musician very used to improvising live, and he could feel the sensation I made in the room, as well as the dancer, of course. She interacted with the projection and with the sound, so it was really is it called a dialogue when you're 3 people? It shouldn't be a trialogue. That's one occasion, and the other one was with an ensemble called Ren Optur or Audionauts, where the score for the performance, which is improvised, is a rocket launch. And usually I've been doing visuals for that many times. Usually there's the rocket launch, unmodified image, and the other side there is the rocket launch where I manipulate it. And then the musicians sit and look at usually at both of them, and used the rocket launch as a score. But this time we could only practically have one projection, so I was clever enough to just take skip the unmodified and then just show the modified version that I did. And they phased the video in order to be able to use it as a score. So it's very special setups where it has happened.
We're aiming for number 5 today.
Yeah.
Later on.
Number 5.
Let's see.
So yeah, I think that is more or less what I have. Then there's of course a lot of stuff with venues, but let's take that in the debate. Otherwise, I can keep talking forever.
Yeah, that's that is true. So can I. We all have very strong opinions about these things. My name is Andreas Wetterberg. I'm the founder of the Copenhagen Laptop Orchestra, or CLO, I'll start by rewinding a bit, I guess. I have about 20 years of experience in electronic music. I switched to, I started using sort of live elements when I switched to Ableton Live. Ableton Live 3, so that was a lot of years ago.
Pre-MIDI.
That was before they had MIDI in it. And I've been working with improvisation ever since 1999. And I have a very strong background in improvised music. I play the bass and keyboard. And basically we did like long jams, sort of like Fish or whatever, like really long psychedelic things. And over time I switched to doing more and more electronic stuff. And when I founded CLO, that was 3-ish years ago, I wanted to do something that would emulate the laptop orchestras you see at Princeton and MIT. They have Clork, and there's a Slork as well, which is Stanford, I guess. And the thing about them is they take the student body, and then each performer has a laptop and a controller or whatever, and then they perform written scores. So I wanted to do something that would have the feel of this orchestra, but be more of a like a jazz ensemble in terms of improvisation. So that my background is in that, and my the improvisation is sort of my entry into the visuals side of it, where I have worked a lot with designing systems that would interact with the performing musician. So that would be like communication standards back and forth and all that stuff. And that has a very sort of one-to-one mapping. And I know Sune advocates for, I will talk about this later, Sune advocates for having the performer be a sort of intermediary, like a visualist performer in the middle interpreting the music. Whereas the stuff I've been working with has a very sort of one-to-one mapping, not in the sense of mapping like masking a building or whatever, but mapping a parameter in music to a parameter in visuals. That has very sort of structured, almost like everything's connected with strings. Every time you see something move, you know it's connected to some sound you just heard. And that has a lot of implications in performing electronic music. It actually helps the audience understand what's going on in the music, and there's a lot of pedagogical benefits to doing this way. But also, I acknowledge that the art of the visuals suffers. There's a lot of work to be done in the mapping, and if the mapping is wrong for whatever performance situation you're in, and if you're doing improvised music, you can't really prepare for that, then you have a problem, and that's where the visualist is key. And that's the performer that sort of makes the artistic decisions to do this or that. So my main gripe with how visuals have worked in the past, especially, is that there's a strong disconnect between the visuals and the music. And oftentimes, if visuals are done to a specific background or like an album release, for instance, can't really go that far in the direction of the visuals, and the visuals are, in my opinion, need to connect to that element in a special way. So that's what we'll be discussing today. But my input in this is in improvisation and in basically doing real-time, making real-time choices about what's going on visually and musically. So that's what I'll be talking about. I didn't bring any fancy videos or sounds. You just have to look us up or whatever. Thank you.
Great. I'll just quickly present myself really shortly and then show this video. I'm one of two main organizers of an electronic music festival where we have a high focus on VJ. And I do a lot of other stuff, but now you can just see what Plugout is. And there's some speech in Danish, so I apologize for the English speakers. But yeah.
Rumkraft Festival er jo sådan en undergrunds elektronisk musikfestival, hvor vi laver de her sådan kæmpe helhedskoncerter, hvor der er en masse visuals på. Der er en masse up-and-coming elektroniske musikere.
Det vi har i år er Basement, som er Slottets kælder. Det er stenhårdt, undergrundsagtigt rave og analogt visual udstyr. Så har vi Orange, som er i perfekte forhold til VJ's, helt mørkt, kanon lyd. Vi har cirkelteltet, som er helt chilleren, old school, gammel telt, gammel discoanlæg, sofaer, bar, goldbajer, goldbanks, folk de chiller, og det er der, hvor folk de restituerer og begynder deres dag. Og så har vi slottet, som er fuldstændig overdrevet flot og kæmpe inferno af sanser og følelser og lyd og overflod af alle ting.
Det, der fedt at vise på Plugout, det er, at det er både et upcoming festival for musikere, men også for DJ's. Og så kommer der rigtig meget fokus på visualsene, og det gør også, at der er rigtig mange af musikerne, der bliver ret interesseret i at få skræddersyet nogle visuals til dem. Så der er lige så meget fokus på visuals, som der er på musikken, og det kan man godt virkelig mærke, at der er stemning for. Det er ret fedt.
Det som er kult å være artist på Plugout Festival er de første rammene. Landskapet, slottet, sjøen, det hele. Naturen. Som man ikke ofte ser på en festival på samme måte. Ja. Og så møter man får mulighet til å se andre artister, både små, store, etablerte, ikke-etablerte, som prøver ut nye ting, og som holder på med genre som ligger helt i front av vår tid, eller i hvert fall innen elektronisk musikk. Så både innen musikken og VJ-en synes jeg det er veldig i front. Og så er publikum som kommer inn, fordi Plugout har satt så gode rammer, så er publikum åpne for å se alt mulig forskjellig. De er ikke like strenge som man kanskje er på andre festivaler. Ja. Og det er jo fantastisk å få lov å spille for et sånt publikum.
Det vi håber for de næste år, det er, at vi kan skabe de her rammer for de up-and-coming artister. Vi kan smide nogle fede hovednavne på plakaten, og så kan vi give mulighed for at dele de her oplevelser ud til så mange mennesker som overhovedet muligt.
artist, and this is my main background for being here today. Beside of Plug Out, I'm the founder of a new charity event where we incorporate a lot of visuals as well, and even have like more focus on the whole experience and chill out experience than the music and the visuals. It's like part of a whole experience. Then I'm an electronic musician and producer, and then I'm doing some entrepreneur stuff with sound as well, and it's an educated sound designer. So I experience like both sides of the coin. That for a sound designer, I'm used to like have to relate to all the visuals and being the small fish.
This is in computer games or film, right?
Yeah. Where usually the sound designer is the last one to be brought in, and I think it's the same thing that that other people who DJs and visualists experience for these concerts, because it's still a new thing, and at least in mainstream. And what we try to do for our Plug Out Festival is trying to bring visualists more early in the process, and because we're still a small festival with 200 to 300 attendees each year, still a lot more can be done, but we really want to bring these concerts that's not only music, but it's like the combined, and yeah, it's to bring a better concert experience by combining the strength of like both of these guys. Yeah, and I think I could keep talking as well about my projects, but for today I'm kind of the spokesperson of venues in a way, and will try to come with my
I'll just try to make this darker.
Yeah.
But just keep talking.
Yeah, I was
distracted. It's fine.
I think I was done.
Oh, okay.
I can.
Could you tell us a bit about one of the success stories from Plug Out where you managed to facilitate?
Yeah, I think for me and us, it was really great this year to finally be able to put visuals on this white Renaissance castle, which we have at the venue, and give some kind of special setting for people to enjoy the visuals in that you can't find anywhere else in Denmark. At least it's very, very hard, and you can't find it in Copenhagen. Because this festival is down not so far from Vejle, between Vejle and Billund. So it's pretty far out, but I think that's one of the success stories.
Awesome. Well, thanks.
All right. So, any personal questions to these guys before we move into the debate?
It's good.
Yeah, good for you.
Is anyone on the stream?
There's a guy called Matthias Voss who says hi to you. Okay.
Oh, hey.
All right. Well, let's move on to the debate then. And the first theme is working on onstage communication, and what we can like. How does this work, and what can we do about it?
Yeah. So the way we kind of see it is there's several different aspects to it. There's the sort of the pre-performance stage, where it is very nice musicians if you talk to your visualists and not just bring them in. Of course, we'll go into that. And then there's the actual, which will improve the communication on stage. And then there's actually the sort of the physical elements of being on stage. and I know you had a lot of experience of playing on stage and what that entailed.
Basically, what I'd like to end up seeing more of course not exclusively, is that the person making visuals become an integrated band member, and that it is not seen as something you just go and grab and say, hey, we need some nice flickering lights behind us. That's almost offensive to ask for, but not always. But that you add a person, bring the person doing the visuals on stage. I usually put on the writer that I need to be on stage, both for mainly to be able to communicate better with the musicians, but also so that it's obvious for the audience that I'm part of the performance. What do you say? Yeah, as an equal performer to the musicians. I'd like to see more of that. Not always. I mean, it's completely fine to have the other hierarchy, but I think it can be a lot better.
Yes, and as an improviser and as the musician, well, you represent the venues a lot in this sort of scenario. But speaking as mainly a musician, I think being close to the one you're performing with is incredibly useful. I know verbal communication on stage is something people should do more of, even though it seems weird to just talk to someone while you're playing. It actually makes a lot of sense, especially while communicating abstract things. Like musicians might be able to communicate going backwards or forwards into a beat or whatever, but talking abstractly about I don't like that green thing you're doing, or it is very difficult to do.
That hi-hat is super annoying.
Yeah, exactly. And you should be able to, if you're a part of the band, you should be able to speak on things like that. And obviously that takes some education, both for the, I think perhaps mainly for the musicians, because I think a lot of visualists have music in their sort of bones, in the sense that they do visuals for music in a large sense. So there's some musicality in it, but I don't necessarily see it going the other way.
Yeah.
Like
quite often because the musicians can't see the screen.
There's some really sort of logistical, where do we fucking place the musicians, and if you place them in front of a screen playing towards the audience, well, then you can't see the screen, and then you're fucked in terms of visuals. So, like, the really great setups would have for instance, a monitor for the performers, if they're in a position where they can't see the screen. And obviously, those types of things take time to set up, but it's worth it in the long run.
But I mean, if you compare it to the amount of money a small venue spend on a sound system, it is super cheap.
Yeah.
It's close to nothing.
Yeah. So in general, like a stronger focus on the fact that a visualist actually adds something tangible to a performance is really good. So the onstage communication takes some education of the musicians. Like we need to learn, we need to learn a lot about aesthetics and dynamics and speaking about what we're doing in a non-musical way. In the sense that if I'm bringing in an extra hi-hat layer or a ride layer or something in my music, that means something dynamic is happening, and I need to be able to communicate what I'm actually doing and what my intention is for doing that to someone else. And I think speaking about what we're doing as performers, and in a broader sense communicating it with body language and with intent, and in our music you can speak through your music. You can say, I'm going to do that now, and often a drummer will do, and then you know something's going to happen, right? We can communicate a lot, and I think the moment you start seeing a visualist as a part of a group, not necessarily the band, like that's the ideal situation, but a part of the group in the sense of, like, normally you'd have your head roadie if you're a big orchestra. That head roadie means something.
I just thought of something, and this is an open. I encourage you visualists out there to do this. One thing that could be interesting is to all of a sudden have a countdown in the music.
Yeah.
So then you expect that something will happen once you reach zero. And that would be cool to be able to just put up a countdown, and then the band would somehow respect and respond to that.
Yeah.
That'd be quite interesting.
And actually, we do that type of communication while playing as musicians. Like a DJ would put on a riser sound, and everybody knows something's happening, right? Every fucking audience member knows what's going to happen in a minute. Like, why can't we translate that sort of communication into interpersonal band communication? I think we can do a lot by playing with these parameters as musicians and as visualists, and facilitating that in terms of the venues.
Yeah, because I think if you just don't have the possibility to actually look at the visuals, then it's pretty hard for the visuals.
Yeah, then it makes no sense. But I mean, you can always, for instance, in a setup like this, where we have the screen here and we have the audience there, then when I have had to do that, then I have been standing with the musician in front of me. So that we sit like this, if Andreas is the musician, and I'm sitting here, then I can look at my screen there. It might not be the best, you're the tape, yeah. And then you have the audience out there, so that there can be both a communication this and that way. And when I do my own visuals, where I make the sound too, I then sit with my back, with the front to the screen and my back to the audience. And then take on a role as more of a conductor or something like that.
And obviously something like this takes some preparation, it takes some communication between you and I. It also takes some effort from the venue to say, okay, we're going to do that. That means that if the projector is like 20 meters that way, we need to facilitate that.
Yeah.
And that's some real sort of logistics and proper sort of physical.
But to me, it's no different from having a stage box so that you can actually have the microphones on stage.
Exactly. I mean, you would do that for a musician. You would say, okay, we'll put the stage box here, and we can put the mixer wherever.
I remember when I began 15, 17 years ago, then it was quite common that I had to bring my own projector, and I always complained about it and said that it's a bit like expecting the musician to bring the PA system.
Yeah.
And you would never expect a musician to do that. But I'd like to hear from you guys, because I'm talking from the experience of seeing stuff, and I don't see far from everything. I don't go out as much as I used to do. Do you agree with that? Is that communication lacking too much?
Yes.
And just to open up the audience, how many in here are VJs or working with visuals?
Or visualists.
Visualists, sorry. Yeah, same goes for the stream. One guy.
And how many? There's one girl there as well, so half.
You have to be serious when you put up your arm. Great. And how many are working with music?
The rest.
Okay, so mostly musicians in here. Awesome.
Excellent. Then I need to rant some more and shout at you and yell at you.
Well, and the way that we do it is, if you have any input, just put up your hand, and yeah, we'll make it work.
What about organizers?
Are there any organizers here? There's three. Yeah.
Good question. Yeah, thank you. All right. So back to your question.
Are there any physical venues here?
But my impression is that I was thinking about changing the sound and vision debate to, is live visuals an afterthought for musicians? I feel quite.
That's a trick question. It certainly is.
It's not a leading question.
Is.
But am I right? Is this? You said yes. You're not a musician, yeah?
Yeah, I completely agree. I've been to many electronic concerts over the years, and in general, I think it was, when I look at it, it was lacking really. It's always like, well, the shapes is like goes this way and maybe moves a little bit, but there was often a lack of synchronicity between the music, and where I'd like to see like some rhythmic elements. Like, I mean, it doesn't have to be every like big drop kick every time the kick comes in or the snare comes in that something happens, but a little bit more synchronicity rhythmically, and maybe also like the strings or the synthesizer comes in. You can make shapes out of that. You can kind of visualize it. And there's on Ableton's site, there's they make these artist profiles all the time. And so recently there was a band called Lacquer, Irish duo, making some kind of reorganized techno or something like that. And they made a big thing out of this. Like they designed the visuals themselves, and it looked like I saw this video on the side, and it looked like it was completely synchronized and integrated, really integrated. I'd like to see much more of that.
I completely agree. And what we do in my orchestra is that everything is communicated in some way, which means that the bass player knows when my kick drum is playing. Like his system knows. And I for one would love to meet that one person that would say, give me all your OSC, give me all your MIDI notes, give me everything, and I will interpret that into something. The flip side of that is that it becomes a visualizer. Like it becomes sort of it can become sort of just showing what is playing.
You're a little bit excusing yourself, and you also said, because I think that having this visualizer, having a direct mapping from a musical parameter into a visual thing, very often looks horrible.
Yeah.
And I don't know, all of you must have seen this thing, and you put sound into the computer, and then it jumps, and it looks like this, no matter what comes into it.
Yeah.
And making a good visualization of the sound this way, I would call that a visualization of the sound, or the parameters, is very difficult to make something that's interesting. And the risk of doing that is, I've tried once where on rare occasion I have been doing usually a spectral analysis of the sound and then use that. But the problem is that the expression in that becomes so strong, and at one point I experienced that whenever I tried to tweak or change something and perform that, then it looked worse than if I didn't touch it. Yeah. So I had one concert where it looked the best if I was just looking at it. And that's not really performing in my mind. And to go back to that synchronicity, first of all, that requires that you somehow know the music and collaborate and probably get some data from the musician, which I have experienced it once, that this happened with someone I worked with. And it's actually, and this is a shout out to people doing Ableton, I mean not you guys, but the developers, that it is surprisingly difficult to get parameters from Ableton into whatever software you use to visualize it. Yeah. That is actually very difficult to do it elegantly, at least. So what I do to follow the tempo of the music is that, first of all, I use video feedback a lot, which is very chaotic, which means that no matter how you look at it, your brain will always find some element that fits the beat, a tempo or something. And then I try to use a zoom effect to illustrate that now the music is intense and fast, and also some flickering. But I never try to hit the beat. First of all, my rhythmic sense of rhythm is quite horrible, so if I have to do like this, first of all, it's quite annoying I'm not a drummer or anything, so it's very annoying for me to do that, to follow the beat. And no matter how I do it, because I'm usually not connected to the musician, then I can't hit the beat. And often I can't really predict. Usually I can predict changes in the music, but not always. So I try to more interpret the speedness or tempo of the music into something. Imagine a car driving, and then the speed of the car can be 50 kilometers an hour or 120 kilometers an hour. But you can always make that speed fit with whatever tempo the music has. If you understand, that I translate the tempo feel of the music into something that is not beat related, but still gives an impression of a tempo.
And then you have the other side of it, which is the hyper synchronized stuff. Let's mention it while we are talking about visuals in general, like the Amon Topin concert Izam, I think it's called. Have you seen that? It's quite an impressive piece, and it's basically Amon standing inside a box with insane projections on it. And it will do all the classic mapping effects where, oh, the building's 3D, it's falling apart, oh. And then, everything works out fine in the end. But the thing is, the compromise made there is that everything is done in advance. There is no real-time element to that at all. It's all rendered, and it probably takes weeks and weeks to render that shit out in gleaming chrome 3D stuff. So that process of making it look amazing takes away all the real-time elements. And then you say to yourself, well, is this a concert now? I would argue that it's not a concert anymore. It's more of a show. It's more of watching a film. And we have to make some really, I think I will call for more deliberate choices made regarding which direction to go. Like, you can have everything running as it sounds on the album, and then everything just follows that. And you can make some deliberate choices about saying, okay, I'm taking back some real-time elements here, and that goes for the visuals as well. And I would advocate for going in that direction because, at least for me, I'm watching the concert to see that element, that things can go wrong. I will bet you there's 3 or 4 redundancies in Amon Topin's setup, and there's like 2 projectors for each location of that thing, so if one burns out, and like everything, there's nothing that can go wrong, and I'm like, okay, why am I here? That's of course probably a controversial element.
But then again, I mean, we can also bring this. This is a complete. I'll just make a tiny side note.
Yeah.
Is that the way that we can now make generative visuals? We can make generative audio. I think it would be interesting to have this saying that it sounds like the album. It would be nice to make an album that will never sound the same. So it's a piece of software art or whatever you will call it. And then when you go to the concert, it will be a different instance that you can share with others, and you can perhaps add elements to that. But in this way, you could ensure that
yes.
And basically, whenever you have something that is rendered into either a video or a sound file, it's kind of dead. And me as a live real-time performer, I would shout out for that. But I think that's a completely different discussion that is also interesting.
But it does set up some elements for the visualist and the performers to talk about.
Yeah.
And also to bring it into the next element here, that.
Perhaps we should before we go to the next, because it seems like there's some.
Yeah, we have some questions on the chat. There's one from Matthias Voss that asks, do you see a bright future for these hybrid musician visualist projects in the mainstream media in the future?
Me? Yes.
And yeah, I do too.
Define your mainstream media. I think
it already is. I mean, if you look at the Eurovision Song Contest, for instance, to take one of the most mainstream things, the Olympic Games opening, it's totally a synchronized AV performance thing.
Yeah.
We can always debate the musical qualities of those, but that's basically what's there. So it's already there. And it is both coming from the underground, where it's weird underground settings, and then you have these hyper expensive TV shows. I mean, sending a TV show today with no visuals in it when you have music would be super weird.
Yeah. There is a follow-up question, which is, do you believe that the visualist will ever gain the same recognition as the musician?
In some way, they already have. I mean, it's still not, you don't get a Madonna visualists. But you do sometimes when you have certain kinds of filmmakers doing music videos and also doing live stuff. You had
David Lynch,
and you have also had Chris Cunningham doing stuff. They make visuals for live performances, but also when you come from the other side, you have people like Anti-VJ, where their name as a visualist, they quite often do installations, but also live visuals for Rumkraft and the likes are there, and then in some circles, then the German Pfadfinderreihe, who for Apparat and Mode Selector, are also quite well known in their own way. But you don't know how they look because you look at their visuals and not at them. So this iconic
cult of personality
thing is not really there, and there are others. There is where it bridges between media artists and also people doing live visuals like Quayola, and that's just from the top of my mind. But there are people who are well known, and then of course people who are well known in the community or something. But there are some who are almost well known outside of the community.
So we're starting to see a tendency towards this.
Yes. Oh, and here in Denmark, obviously Dark Matters. They headline and they bring people, and also Obscura, who are doing visual setups. So it is there. So and they are on the posters for the events in the same way. No one would pay for them to come and not write it. I mean, that would be stupid in many ways. Now we just need to have more where we are not just some subtitle under it. Actually, a couple of weeks ago for this Science and Cocktail things, I was on the poster for that as well. So,
have any of the musicians in here had like a relationship with a visualist in a performance? Yeah. How did that work out?
It worked pretty well. But that was not in Denmark, but so he was a really good guy, really good at adapting also, and catch the mood, everything pretty well. It's synchronized also, so that he was really good.
How was the setup? Physically.
3 projectors, like one are made into one like widescreen screen. So still pretty basic kind of setup.
Could you see the visuals while you were performing?
No.
And was it a fixed set or a live where you could improvise the music as well? Or?
It was also, it allowed for improvisation also.
Okay.
But that's also, I think that's an interesting discussion in general, because that whole it should be improvised, right? And it is also like these different arenas, because I think I've been, like every time I go out, it's not that often these days, I miss like that whole element, even though you go to like kind of, it's been a couple of years ago, a big event at the like Diamond or something, they have these culture nights, everything is like blown up, and it's like, what the fuck is going on, man? Is this the best you can do, right? All this money you get, well, where are the ambitions? I see it everywhere, or the lack of that, which is so unfortunate. I tried last year to create an event I called Senseless Beings at Film of Visions, where the idea was to like break that whole element of spectator and performer, like breaking it down so you arrive and you're present, and there's not this, I have to look at the stage and look at someone performing, but they create the whole atmosphere for you to be present in, and ideally the room becomes like this geometrical thing you can project onto or whatever, right? So the visuals are not confined to 2D stuff also, which I think is often a shame, like also like a very traditional way of doing stuff.
This brings up 2 very interesting points that I see are, first off, you said that you find it a shame that it's confined to a 2D projection surface, and also that it needs to be very big. Now I forgot the other one, but to me, I really miss projecting onto something really, really big, having lots of projectors and doing that, really limits what kind of content you can show on that. And to me, it's a bit like having a super loud sound system with lots of speakers that doesn't sound very good, and then only a certain kind of music sounds good through that. And it's the same thing to
the
ask
dub
for,
guy's laughing.
but for some kinds of music, that's super nice and really cool. You can do something, but you need to produce the content for it. If you want to have at least some kind of fidelity in what you project onto, then the best screen is a screen. And having a good projection surface with a powerful, high contrast, bright projector, to me is the best thing, because you can make the content there. And that you think it's a shame is just because the content is not there for it.
Okay.
I mean, so if you make some fancy mapping onto some fancy geometry, it limits a lot what you can do, which story you can tell with that, even though it's an abstract story. And so I miss that you accept that we need some sort of hi-fi element into this whole visual things, that if you're picky enough as a musician to require to have a certain quality sound system, why shouldn't the visualist do the same thing?
Mm.
And unfortunately, it's still in such a way that it is most important to get a super bright projector. That's more important than that the colors are good. But hopefully, and the way the development goes, we will get more pixels, we will get better contrast and better colors for less money. So to me, I agree and disagree with you. You'd like to have more visual, impressive installations. It's also very difficult for me as a visualist to make a show that can go on to 20 projectors projected into random corners of the room, into the next thing where there's just one screen, one projector to thing. So if you want to be able to have a performance where you as a musician perform, then you need to be able to require, I want a good screen. So it's not to say that the other things are not important, it's just a different thing, in my opinion.
Yeah, definitely.
So,
I think it would be interesting to hear what, like, the VJs, visualists out there.
We had one. There was a comment first.
I'm a musician, and I also make music with my laptop. And I had some experiences where I'm playing like in a church, for instance, with different VJs, so I could compare the different setup and the different communication. And a couple of times, like to compare, to be quick, when I played in a church with Obscura, it was the first time. It was last year, and I was really impressed. Like, professional. I didn't know anything about visuals and all that stuff, the mapping, and they didn't know anything about my music. And we just talked like a few times, and I just sent them some tracks. So they knew what I was doing, so it was like ambient. And so while I played, I was sitting in a long table in the middle of the church, so I could see what's going around me. So it was like some smoke, some light, and so from the ceiling. So I could see the light. So I think it was also funny for me to communicate or collaborate with them at the same time, because it was my improvisations and also they were improvised with me. So I think it fits very well because I could see I was in the middle of everything. And of course, when I play, for instance, in another church, I don't see anything behind. I see the visions behind me, so I don't see anything. And the only way to make it like more synchronization, I would say, with the urgencies is like, of course, to practice before and talk with you with the VJing. And in my case, when I work with somebody like that, it's like I need to understand if you feel my universe, if you knew who I am, like my music, and if you understand what I'm saying, what I'm playing, then we can do something. So I think it's also like complicity, I would say, it's like friends, 50-50, and that's the only way how you could bring the music and the visual together, I think.
The thing I would say that I would miss from someone like you, thank you, I'm really glad that you had that experience. But I would say that if you want a visual side with it, then you should partner up with someone doing visuals for you. So that then you come out, and I would also think that it would be a better selling point that you come here as an AV act instead of just a musician. So that you would team up, and we come to that as the next subject here. Perhaps this is a nice bridge for that. That you should, I say that you should, of course you decide yourself, but if you want to do this, I think a very good way to do that would be find someone with whom you communicate well with, who can make visuals for you, perhaps even as you create the music, or at least take someone in early. And then you can do it multiple times, and you can also figure out how to make the setup so that you can see the visuals. This way, it can just be in your writer that you need to be positioned so that you can see the visuals.
But I think it's also for me, like, I guess it's very individual. I think it's for each musician how they perceive the visuals. And for me, like when I make music, I have some visuals in my mind, but I don't have the skills to express those visuals. So for me, the only way is like, of course, the music it's not enough when I play ambient or stuff like that. I need the audiences, I need to feel me for everything, every sound or visual. So I think it's about how you communicate in your mind. You know, it's very psychological also, because you have to make an understanding about it.
I think that's a really good point, because you see, oh, this would work really well with this visual thing. And at that point, it would be really good to have your friend on the phone. It's like, hey, for this piece, we'll do this. We'll make it really blue, but click. And that sort of communication takes a lot of planning ahead of time. But it also takes a change of the mindset that we're the band and then there's this visual guy fixing things.
But this is the same thing as just doing while you're making the music. The way I hear it. That then you say the command, I want something blue now. Then you're, I'm defined. But yes, in translated, I am the master of this thing. I'm the band leader, and I'm doing this. And I'd like that you think you need a visual side. Then I would like to say, then your band, even so talking about this band, need a band member who play visuals.
Yeah, this is really
like if you want a drummer in a rock band, then you contact someone playing drums. And then you can either say, I want something like this, and then you need to find someone who can do whatever that is, or someone who can say that person's visuals, what they come up with when they hear your music, works well with that, and then that is your combined expression. And only that way, when you can do that. Otherwise, it's completely random. And I've been doing random stuff all the time. I do it all the time, and I like it. But if you want to move it further,
but it's about also creating a story.
Yes,
absolutely.
It can be either a told and a concrete or an abstract story. But yes, creating a story. And that also again puts some requirements to the visual setup, a bit like it does to the sound setup.
But I think as musicians, I think it's easy today to find the right, or not the right people, I would say, but to find someone who understands the same as you, because today it's like, I mean, I'm alone, you know, I mean, I'm apartment and I have internet, of course, but I won't write in Google, I'm looking for a region, you know, it's like, maybe Google won't understand that. So it's always about, you know, you need to check out.
Then you join Visual Hagen on Facebook. There's a group called Visual Hagen, which has people doing visuals all over Denmark, and then you say, hey, I'm doing this project, I'd like to collaborate with someone. Or find the communities. You can go to music stores and come to events like this to meet people who are doing this. And you're doing that, so so I can recommend Visual Hagen.
Okay.
Yeah, bring that up, by the way. Post that out on the thing.
Just a viewpoint from, I'm also a visualist, but I'm a documentary visualist because I'm a music photographer.
Yeah.
So I've been to a million of these events and photographed them.
Yeah.
So obviously what I can communicate is the visual side of it.
Yeah.
I can't shoot the sound waves. I'd love to. That would be really cool. But
So the visuals add a lot to this, but I feel they only really add some. I really only like them, but they're actually part of the story. But they're not random. I'm trying to express what the musician is doing.
Yeah.
And I think electronic musicians have a extra challenge in the fact that a lot of the time, seriously, it looks like people are checking their email.
Yes, absolutely.
It's harder to physically express something on stage when you're having a laptop and Chaos pads and Ableton stuff and whatever. Even if you have that, you're still you're basically, it's an advanced form of checking email, but it still looks like you need something extra on top of that. You're not like some people are blessed with, they can play guitars, they can run around everywhere. It's more physically expressive. In this case, you need something that expresses, so when I take a picture of it, it expresses the music that is coming out. I don't like a musician picture, but there's something random there that makes it look like it's the most ravey music ever, because that's not what was being played. So I think it should be, like the part about bringing the audience in and filming that is an awesome thing. I've actually never seen that before. That would be so cool to shoot, because you can have the people.
I'm surprised that no one did it before. I mean, I haven't seen anyone doing it like that.
No. So I think that the whole communication thing would be so awesome. Like the best of these events to photograph is when there's actual communication, there's a musician, there's a VJ who's like, it's part of it, it's a storytelling. They're equals, but also the audience is part of it. There's a certain amount of doing a holistic thing.
Yeah.
Like I was watching that video from Plug Out, and I definitely have to go there next year. That was,
please come.
It's
very well.
We get a discount ticket from you today, or?
Yeah.
If we can get the whole the audience, musician, and visuals and everything in one big story, that's when it's really. Then electronic music, I think, has an advantage.
Sure. But then we bridge. I mean, to me, that we need to distinguish between doing a visual interpretation of the music or a visual part of the music and then stage design. And it's a blurry line when one stops and the next one continues. For instance, I love the projection with the castle, but at the same time, if you look at it as someone who has crisp visuals, then the windows might block out important parts of your visuals. So it's a cool screen, but in some respects it's a cool screen. It's a bit like taking a screen and then cutting big holes in it. And so while that doesn't in a very big way influence the content that you can work with on it, it does somehow affect how it looks.
Yeah.
And that's important for me to say, because I like that. I mean, when I listen to music, I'd like to have a good sound system. When I look at visuals, I'd like to have a good screen for that. And I call it screen, while at the same time I'd like to try to avoid looking like a TV or something, because people are used to looking at TV and are used to very well-produced content. By now I'm where I think my content looks so much different from regular TV that it doesn't really matter. So I feel that the content I make can stand up to being presented in a good quality.
There was a comment?
Yeah, I think it's a good point about the way the visuals can actually project what the musicians are doing, because of the sort of there's a gap between the audience and the actual musicians when it comes to electronic music, especially with the EDM wave and all that. So it could just be pressing a button. The audience doesn't necessarily know to or from, yeah? And I've actually worked with a project called Eskimo, The Engine Room. We sort of, as an audience, led into the actual process of the live performance. And it was sort of like a very concrete way of using visuals as a projection of what the musicians are doing. So we were just live streaming with GoPros what people were doing on stage, and then putting it on a big screen and on these small analog TVs from the 90s. And I think you can do that more or less in an abstract way, but there is a good point about projecting the musicians and what they can do in the visuals.
Yeah, I have a very good example of this. I went to Click Festival in the spring this year in Helsingør, and there was a performance by Bjørn Sveen, and some visual artist that I don't remember.
Carson.
Right. And I must say he was really excellent. I never in my life saw anything that brilliant. I said to people, this is like Hollywood. Like he was making some kind of, it looked like an alien that was like constantly morphing. It was so, say, high quality, and you could see all details, and it was like thousands of particles and moving and strings, like it was really amazing. And it moved like well, not completely, well, it was synchronized with the music, and actually also Björn was dancing with this, and he was wearing some maybe some Wii sticks or something like that, and this kind of morphing alien was moving with whatever he was doing and with the music. So yeah, it's really, really excellent.
I think it was Kinect, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was Kinect.
Oh, right.
Yeah. And the whole performance is
Thanks.
wow. Didn't like it.
But I think maybe you could.
It looks exactly like him.
It is him. No, but technically this setup was. Of course, we should have Kalimini here to explain it, but with a Kinect and then what's called an eyeliner, so that you basically project onto the floor, and then you have a transparent screen here that will reflect what's projected onto the floor. So, but it's semi-transparent, so you can stand behind it, and then it looks like you're in the same position as what's on the floor, so that you can actually stand inside the visuals, which is super cool.
Did the purpose go?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then there was a Kinect to be able to track Björn's movement. I think actually even that controlled the sound, if I'm not mistaken. So that they actually created an audio-visual instrument. I'll just move in here. Just some random add. Sorry, Kalimini, if you hear this. I just jump around and really fucking I'm trying to find somewhere where we can see Björn and the visuals at the same time. There he is! Anyway, I'm a huge fan of both of those two people. So.
Yeah, so they're awesome people.
So I bow in the dust for you guys. Yeah. But what I'd like to have a comment to that thing about showing what the musician do, because if you do that, that's fine. But it's, in my opinion, it's not where you put visuals and music on the same level. Then it is being used as a thing to interpret what, or to translate what the musician is doing to the audience, where I think that having a visual side that has its own aesthetic qualities that play together with the other thing, and not necessarily translating what is going on, is much more interesting. But that's just me. So
there's two different elements that play together well.
But it's two different things.
And that's my point, really, that it expresses the music. It doesn't have to like actually film the musician or anything. There's a certain synchronization.
But it also, I mean, that's one of my points, is that there usually is a hierarchy, that the music is the most important thing, and then you have something flickering on the screen, and that balance is more or less to a degree, and it's very, very rare that they're on equal levels, and even rarer that the visuals are more important than the music.
I think it's also common to some of these things, but it also comes back to what I said before, but the whole idea about, like, I went to Robert Henke Lumiere, like, where you get the performer off stage, so it's only about the audio and the visual part. And then you also get rid of the problem with technique, because anyway, I don't want to get distracted or try to, oh my god, what he's doing or anything. I want to be present and I want to experience that whole thing. That was why I like to see it as, like, ideal for me. Some of the stuff I create, which is very cinematic, ambient also, which are like a visual side to it, is experienced differently. It's experienced in a cinema with the perfect conditions for displaying your video, visuals, whatever it is, and with the perfect audio system where you are present and you're not distracted by anything else. And then it could be some kind of completely different setting where you're not necessarily confined to a 2D screen, where you walk around and where you maybe interact in some way or whatever, but you use your body, but you're still present. And it's not that it's supposed to be a social thing.
Yeah. I have a very brief comment to that, because that's super easy for a musician to say, and incredibly much work for a visual artist to do something, because then you have to produce a site-specific piece of work every time. And the sound musician can just hit play for what they usually do. So I won't call it arrogant, but it's a little bit arrogant to expect that from the visual.
But it's not
right.
Yeah.
I mean, then you should, if we should do that, then you should also convert and have an interesting piece to play through a 12-channel sound system, something like that. So there's this imbalance of how much work things takes to do.
But I agree that we all search for these sort of ideals, and that sort of cinematic, laid-back, perfect scenario is one of those ideals that we strive towards, right? So some of us work hard on doing these sort of real-time improvised things where obviously the ideal is not present because it's unattainable. So like you can
it's completely attainable.
No, the ideal?
Yeah.
I would philosophically and sort of
of course
categorically disagree.
that doesn't exist, but you can get pretty
But we work towards it. That's the point, right? We work towards it. Whereas the fixed performance of a thing where you sort of print it into a digital video and render it out into 12-channel whatever Atmos sound, which would be amazing, by the way, is an ideal that is quite far from that. It's kind of the difference between a videographer or a sort of a video artist, where the main tool is After Effects and Final Cut or whatever, and onto the visualists, which often work under very sort of very different
and everything is real time, and actually creating content that is not just copied to 12 projections takes a lot of computer power, and we need lots of computers, and it's not just buying a 12-channel graphics card today. I mean, we can probably get 12 outputs into a computer and 16 even if you get a really big one, but actually being able to produce real-time content on that without it being super slow and stuttery is
a dream.
At best super expensive right now.
Yeah.
It's not that far away, but
no.
It's nothing you just do, and then having your visual content scale to a setup like this is very. It's a non-trivial task.
Yeah, definitely. I know. So I'm also talking about an ideal or a dream, or what I would love to see, and not what I would expect. And
but to me, I think it is much more interesting to be able to make high-fidelity visuals that look really good on one good screen. To me, that's much more interesting. Then you can turn off all the lights in the room, and then you still get this very immersive experience. Very immersive.
As long as there are not too many people standing in front of you, so you can't really see half of it anyway.
Yeah, it's a question of it's a question of setup. I mean, you can still present that. When you go to the cinema, you look at the screen and it's very good, and you can use it. This problem has been solved 100 years ago in the cinema. So you can still do that. If you want a dance floor in that, then it's of course you can do that. And it's about positioning the whole setup right.
And obviously this
staging
this puts some demands on the venues.
But it's again talking about the ideal situation.
Absolutely.
Where we could plan the park at our venue to be in. So every audience could see it, and no one like the whole security wasn't an issue.
Sure.
But I think
there was a lot of questions it looked like before when we can.
Wait, I didn't get the order.
No.
That's all. Du har taget hånden ned igen.
Okay.
Ja.
So, yeah. mine was just a general comment on the stuff earlier about treating the visionist as part of the band. Is like I think that you forget if you put up visuals like human beings are visual creatures. If you treat it like an afterthought, it's gonna detract from your performance, from the music. So as soon as you put something out there, people are gonna get wildly distracted by it.
Yeah.
It is just catching the eye immediately. So if you're not treating it as part of the band or something that's equally important to the music, then it's like putting a drummer in a play drums.
So like if you see it from the perspective of the musician, you're looking for consonants. You want something that says the same thing that you're saying. Or if it says something different, it does that deliberately to contrast or to nuance what you're saying. So so like you're a photographer, you pick the picture where you see that consonance. Where you say, this what I'm seeing here is what I'm hearing, or close to what I'm hearing, or want to like the ideal of what I'm hearing. So you keep that image. And I think that's kind of a great point, that the things that really mean something and the things that really work are the ones where things work in, pardon the pun, in concert. Like that's the idea, that's the goal.
Now's the perfect time to say the headline of my rant.
Go.
Because I think the reason we don't see it more often is that musicians don't have eyes in their head.
Yep.
They don't see anything. I've been to concerts where my friend was, wow, this is the most amazing musical experience ever. And I was like, I was completely distracted by a lamp like that one over there that was just going on and off randomly. It was completely bright, so there was no atmosphere. The music performance might have been good, but I couldn't experience it. And a lot of musicians don't really see anything, they listen. And I guess that's a good skill to have as a musician, but not when you work with them regarding visuals.
For me, as both an organizer and musician and all kinds of stuff, I see it from different perspectives, what we are doing. And for me, this kind of disconnect really comes in when the musician is kind of expecting the visualist to be kind of like a sound guy or like light guy, and kind of just helping the performance along the way. And the venue organizer are regarding the visualist as a performer. So nobody is really taking responsibility, or what you could say, for the visualist. Or I'm thinking this is kind of because visuals are maybe a bit newer in these kind of formats, so maybe the different roles of participation for visualists are not that well determined, so people don't really think about it that much, as much as they should. What are your thoughts about this?
Yeah, I mean, to me, there is several or a couple of types that you can perform visuals for music. You can either be part of a band constellation where you work together and then you come to the concert with the musician, and then you are the performer doing the visual part for this guy. And then a lot of these festivals, because they have these stages, then they need to put content on it when there is no one who comes by the musician. So you have someone sitting there doing visuals for everyone at the stage. And to me it's very easy, because then you should treat that person as on level with the sound guy and the lighting guy, as someone who is there from the venue, and they should service the musician and follow their directions and not have too many artistic ambitions on that thing. No, I mean, because then you're less of an artist and more of someone who can make you're part of the stage design.
Yeah. I think the time I saw most of this disconnect thing was when we were hosting as organizers this kind of interactive video event with live music to it, and then there was a VJ supposed to after the video movie had been shown, the concert would continue and the VJ would jam on top of the movie. So I think the problem there was that the band or the artists had booked this VJ, and they had been collaborating and stuff, but they were not in sync, really. So for me, as an organizer, the problem was that they were disconnected even from the start. And that was when I kind of experienced this kind of two-way disconnection, that the visual artists were kind of left alone by both sides of
Yeah, I'm just thinking like part of a bigger thing when visualists are still new. I think people are often adapting more just to get a gig with someone, and what I feel right now is that visualists are beginning to speak up and say, like, actually demand things. But when you don't demand things, you just will get adapted into the whole concert thing, and then of course you will not be at the same level, because for organizers or for everyone, there's like 1,000 of different stuff to take care of.
Yeah.
And if someone is not being loud, then it's not necessarily on purpose, but like musicians have learned to be really loud. To just, I have no monitors and I need in-ear and to put up all that gear.
But currently the problem is that we can't demand a monitor because it's not there.
No.
And
you can start this communication out like we would really want to be on stage.
Yeah.
We really want to
have
monitors.
That thing has improved immensely over the past years, and or it might just be me performing with more established musicians. That might also be the reason. But to me, again, if you consider the cost of a sound system that you have at even the smallest venue somewhere, that is quite expensive. And for a relatively small fraction of that, you could get a super cool setup for doing visuals. You get a couple of projectors and get some matrix distribution so that you can send the signals different places, and you can have it so that you can have the visualist stand next to the lighting guy or on stage, and it doesn't really matter. For a setup like that, 50,000 could bring you really, really far today. So.
But if there's like more money you have to spend, like say you already have the loudspeakers,
but
then
a mixer
you need to put on 50,000 on top of.
Yes,
that
but it's not uncommon that a system for a venue costs 1 or 2 million kroner.
No, of course, if we're talking the big venues.
No, it's not a very big venue. A mixer today costs 100,000 or something for a thing at a venue, a relatively small venue. And the reason the small venues get this equipment is that it trickles down from the bigger venues, or everything gets cheaper that way. But still, you spend a lot of money on that, or even a projector like this one would be set your back. This one is a particularly fine one, so that's expensive, 8,000. So to me, there's very little excuse not to invest at least some money in it.
Yeah, true. But then the challenge is to convince the bigger venues who have budgets like that, not small festivals, because for those guys, it's a big chunk of money. Yeah. And the bigger venues or the big festivals, they buy the finished shows where it's one play button and you get everything rendered out. Yeah. So you have to convince them that they should adapt this, even though it comes mostly from the underground, and make it part of the regular club
Or
system.
they just rent it whenever they need it.
Or starting something like that,
No, but they do that now. I think bigger don't have the big projections. I don't know actually, but that's my impression.
So maybe making like a standard video package that they could do.
Yeah, something like that, or that you have some small projectors and then some equipment so that you can get signals around.
Yeah, and because if we think about like we need to get onto the other parts of the debate as well. So I think we should do like a summation before we talk about now. Try to talk about like in practical terms what we can do about this, because I think it's in all of our interests.
Common interest
to see what we can do apart from talking about this. And there is we talked about this disconnect between the musician and the visualist, and we talked about the spectrum of ways to perform this, from being aim on token, completely rendered out, to be completely improvised and free. And it could be anything in between here. And we talked about the physical challenges about either being on stage as with the visualist and like being part of the band in a broader and a smaller sense, or
but also when creating the content.
And being together when also creating the content. And respect from the musician side and the bookers and the club's side towards bringing the visuals in, not as something automatically rendered, but something which is coherent with the actual expression. As the comment about the church, you played in the church?
Yeah,
what's your name?
Cédric.
What?
Cédric.
Cédric.
Yeah.
As you experienced, you were dealing with someone who were very professional and they were good at adapting to what your expression was through the music, and you together created a stronger impression, I would presume, for like a stronger AV impression apart from being just the audio.
But I think it depends again. I think it depends who you are. I think it depends how you see things, because it's also about, I mean, the culture about things, you know. And again, as I don't know anything about the DJing, any skills. I don't have any skills, but again, I mean, all of us are like in this mood, like creativity. So I think it's also about how you want to communicate yourself to the world. So yeah, I got different experiences, and it was quite the same because we talked before, you know.
Yeah, I think that's very key.
Yeah, you talk and you share ideas, and it's all about communication. It doesn't matter what you're doing; it's about communication, and I think at the end you get something out of that.
So if the panel, like this quick summation, how was
sure
full? What would you suggest that we could do practically to work with this?
One of them we already touched upon. Show up as an AV act. I think showing up as an AV act sends a very strong signal. It sends a signal that not only should the audience care, the musicians care. And it will help shift focus from a musician coming to a performance coming that is more and wants to be more than a stereo signal.
Yes, and once I'm certain that people enjoy seeing things like this and want to see that. So I think if you facilitate, as a venue, facilitate these things, then people will be more willing to show up and pay for experiencing these bands, even though they are not super well-known names, but just because they know that here you get a cool experience with this synchronicity between sound and vision.
That's definitely, like, for us, a plug up. That's what we really want. So just this communication today to learn from you that you really want to be on stage. Like, it's nothing that I have thought of before that much, because, well,
we're performing, we want to be on stage.
Yeah, but it was because we had a VJ contact with kind of organizing this part, and well, I never got that communication.
No, but I mean, it's also different. Some VJs like to be there, but it's also become, I mean, it makes sense to be in the sound booth or wherever where you can see the screen when you're not collaborating with the artist and just doing a random visual soundtrack, because then you're not performing, but just like this guy doing the lighting there. But if you come and have prepared some visuals, some content alongside with the musician, of course you should be on stage.
Yeah, and it like makes perfect sense. It's something that we want to facilitate.
And we're shooting ourselves in the foot if we don't go on stage, because we need to show that we're important. Also, so we get paid as much as the musicians, who don't get paid much, but
do get paid.
Yeah. Oh, I mean.
Yeah, they do get paid after all, and
so do I. But.
Yeah, and you've reached that level.
No, but I mean, it's also
fanciness.
Demanding. Yeah, but it's also about demanding that you want to be respected. And after a while, I've been doing this for many years.
That's the point.
So being able to perform for exposure, it has no value to me. Of course, you can come up with a venue where that exposure is valuable to me, but mostly it's not really.
Yeah, I agree. I'd like to see the visual artists get paid more instead of just like patterns going over some patterns are still getting. It's like someone pressed play, right?
Yeah.
So,
It often is.
exactly.
But I think again, this is a lot about VJs demanding this stuff.
Yeah.
Right.
But I mean, it's very easy, especially if you go to venues who are in this DMF, Dansk Musikerforbund thing, then at least insist on getting a standard fee, what the musicians call a tarif in Denmark. It's, to me, the minimum that you should ask for. Of course, you can go lower if you want to, but I mean, it's a good standard because you're performing alongside the musicians. So of course, you should at least get the same standard minimum fee.
Do you have any like organization like that?
No.
Maybe you should.
Yeah, but I
thinking.
mean, yeah.
Just
Some
another-
years ago on this visual haven side, I was kind of pushing for it or someone doing it, and in Sweden they call it Swedish VJ Union. But then again, I'm not sure that there are people who are diehard. I want to make doing visuals for musical living. So it's always a combination of doing other things as well. I myself work doing interactive museum installations, and that pays the bill mostly. And that also put me in a situation where I can afford to say, no, you don't pay me enough to come.
No.
But for that, we need to have this levebrødsvisualist, or whatever you can call it, where someone wants to make it into a living, and then also it's the same problem with DJs and musicians. Also try to encourage people not to just play for free. It's usually a bad idea to play for free. We all do it anyways. I do it too when sometimes I have to test out some new stuff where it doesn't matter that it crashes, and that's always nice. Software can crash. Rarely, but it rarely happens, but it can happen.
Cool. I just made a small document that we'll share on the event afterwards with a couple of notes towards this, and you're more than welcome to add in. I think we should take a 5-minute break, get some air if people want some coffee or sugar water. We can do that, and then we'll continue with the next subjects.
But
I think we're all,
and the time says that we need to start.
We're almost at the performance part.
Okay.
We'll take a little bit longer break and then set up the performance.
Yeah, if that's fine with you.
If there are any more questions, maybe.
Yeah,
questions.
Let's round it off. Yeah, last questions.
Can I just say that for me, this is kind of what you could do about it also, because for me as an organizer, I'm just, you're saying these kinds of things. I've been working with visuals many times, also as a performer, but I still haven't been thinking about it in this way. So I think breaking down these kind of what do you say, normal ways of thinking about these kinds of things are really important. As you say, Pilar.
Be bright.
I mean, that's kind of
Visualists.
an unfair message to send back to the visualists, I know, but but for me, this is kind of an eye opener. So I'm really
yeah, but also, I mean, if you as organizers actually ask for this, or say, and if you, I'd like to talk to you about how to make a setup like this, and there's a bazillion ways to make these setups. So yeah, and also know what doing that whole projecting on the castle thing actually requires from the visual artist in terms of pre-production and producing content to it. So you can make a fancy setup, but you also should put aside the resources to actually put quality content on it.
Yes.
Otherwise, just make a nice big screen.
Any last words? Good. No, yeah.
Just an addition that I think we can do a follow-up at some point with the one thing missing here, the lighting in the venue.
Absolutely. And you could have a similar talk with the visualists and the lighting people together.
Yeah.
Oh, that would be a war.
That would be a war. Yeah, because now you're sharing the same medium, and then hate will fly through the room.
No, but I mean,
arrows.
I can tell a story about
lumens.
I have the lighting crew always have way more light than me.
Yeah.
Which means that they can ruin your image completely.
Yeah.
And quite often the lighting guy really likes their moving lights and like to play around with them. And that can really be devastating for my expression. So I'm always very, I usually call it Nazi, and I give very strict directions, which are as little light as possible. And I had one lighting guy at one point say, so basically you want me to turn off the light? Yes, that would be nice, because that actually makes my visuals a lot better. So, and that actually is the best situation for someone like me. If I want my visuals to be there, because I have no controls over the lighting system, and that's again something you need to pre-produce. If you really take it into consideration or seriously, I think that if you want AV performance like this, then you should be willing to and able to just turn off all the lights. So to me, that debate is perhaps not really necessary.
Or it would be very fruitful. Perhaps it would be very sort of.
Hey, I know that guy. Funny.
There is a question from the chat.
Yeah.
It's from Matthias again. Isn't the purpose of being on stage to entertain the audience rather than being recognized as an artist? First question. I mean, no doubt that the visual artist should be recognized and paid in the same way as a musician. However, I don't think that the visual artist is as interesting to look at as the musician. Using Churchill, which was the church event that Obscura was making, that was mentioned earlier in the debate, as an example, the musicians were moving around, singing and playing soulfully while the visualists were more inactive.
That was a very uncommon Churchill event, then I would say, because usually the ones I've been to, the musician has been sitting like this, or like this, behind various kinds of electronic equipment. The moving around thing is not a normal Churchill event, and I would argue that the visuals are a lot more interesting, and the whole setup is meant so that in the Churchill event, the whole experience of the space is the interesting part. And whether or not, so in general, whether or not the musician is more interesting to look at than the visualist, I agree, I'm not very interesting to look at. I mean, I prefer people look at my visuals and not me. But I think it's to underline that I'm actually performing live, and it's not just a video running, that I want to be on stage. And depending on the content of the concert and the whole performance, I would say that, of course, we're as interesting to look at least our visuals are, as it is to look at the musician.
Yeah, but I think specifically here, it related, and Matthias, please answer on the chat if we got it wrong. I think this was directly related to the mentioning of having the visual artist on stage. Mm-hmm. And I think here the perception is, and this comes back to our central problem as electronic musicians, working with abstractions and working with the audience being able to understand what we're actually doing. Coming back to moving the finger on the mouse, the classic, is he sending an email scenario? No, he's doing something complex and abstract. And I think why the musician should be more interesting to look at in this scenario is that the musician has a way of making a one-to-one relationship with what he's physically doing and what is being projected in the music, or what comes out of the music.
But we do that as visualists as well.
Exactly, but that would demand the same way of scenic presence and scenic expression.
But when I'm on stage and sitting with my MIDI controller connected to my laptop, tweaking knobs, just like the musician is doing, isn't it the same kind of physical appearance that we're doing?
But you're not running around on stage.
I'm not running around on stage, but
yeah, but that's why. That's how I perceive it. He says, I agree exactly, Rasmus.
Yeah, but I think that for the electronic musicians as well, that doesn't really bring anything. If you're just sitting like this on your computer, then you can be out of the stage too.
Yeah, but I mean, I've been rocking, following the music with my body when performing lots of times, and yes. I guess that is some sort of performance. But if you take that argument, then I would argue that most DJs and most electronic musicians should also be removed from the stage.
Yes,
I mean,
I agree with that.
So it goes.
And Alonso
of course
would agree with you.
But the thing is
remove them
that one thing is removing someone who already is there on the stage, and you're arguing for adding you on the stage.
No, I'm arguing for adding the performing people on stage.
Yeah.
And that includes me if I'm doing visuals.
But then I think that the performer should add something to the performance. I totally get what you say with the recognition of you being part of the performance.
That's one part, but it also adds the element that we have the ability to communicate better when we are both on stage and close to each other.
That's an
and you can't do that when I'm in front of house sitting behind the sound guy or something.
Again, he can't even see you.
No, he can't see me.
No, and even if he can't see you.
So to me, it's in some way I don't understand the question.
No.
Because why should the electronic musician be on stage?
But I
could use the same argument to
the argument of you being able to communicate together brings a better performance and experience for
but
the
I
audience.
mean,
right?
Yeah, and also the thing that the difference between a musician tweaking knobs on stage and me tweaking knob on stage, I don't see anything different. No.
If it's performative.
But it is. I'm doing live visuals. I mean, so is the musician. The only difference is that he has acoustic waves coming out into the room, and I have photons coming out.
And I think that was the one thing that was missing from the summary, and that is the spectrum of being gimmicky and being like being performative. It's we all know the guitarist who does this on the amp, and it doesn't change the music, but it changes the way that we perceive the music. It adds some performative element. Yes, it's cheesy, but it's rock and roll. And I'm not saying that we should do that with our MIDI controllers or whatever we're doing. But
yes,
I mean,
we are.
In part I am. In part I'm not saying that it should be that expressive, but I mean the filter arm is the filter arm, and it does something to the way that we perceive it. I mean, if you're doing what?
Body language is so important.
Body language is important, and that's one.
Also, again, depending on your act, because sometimes it can be
depending on your act.
Part of the act that you're these dark silhouettes on screen and you don't really know what's going on.
Yeah, Kraftwerk or Black Emperor or something like that.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, and I mean that's also cool, but then it's part of the total expression. And obviously, if you get a VJ on stage who's rocking out, and the expression is that there's something introvert, obviously there's another mismatch.
Yeah.
Last question, I think.
Well, I was thinking about what you're saying, and like a bit in the case of Björn Sweet and Carly, if the VJ is wearing like a suit that's connected to everything, he could like but it was just like filled screen with colors, or directly perform in this way, not like turning knobs, but actually painting with his hands. This is possible, right?
Like Imogen,
but again,
kinetic or whatever.
But again, then you're again creating a specific performance for that. I can't imagine all VJs doing that.
Yeah.
I mean, of course, people are doing that, and I would love to see that
collaboration.
Yeah. But that again, it's very easy. It easily ends up asking the VJ or visualist to do more and more specific.
Why is that? I don't see that at all, because
for instance,
if you make a collaboration.
Yeah, sure.
This is possible. You can have the VJ can do whatever he wants.
But so should the sound guys do. They should perform like that, a bit like what's her name?
That's what I think. Yeah.
So then we should demand the same thing from the musicians. I mean, there's no difference. I mean,
I don't think we disagree. By the way,
yeah.
Because I think pushing towards a more performative element is the nature of the beast, because things are we're getting better and better at controlling things. We get more and more options of controlling things.
Yeah.
And I think being more performative, I mean, I'm speaking from the side of the improviser, right? So being performative is something that matters to me, but at the same time, I'm doing 700 things at the same time. and I'm just desperately hoping that people can see that.
Yeah.
And is projecting that's quite a big challenge. And I think we should perhaps end on that note.
Yeah.
So you want to say this? We'll do a falafel break.
Oh wait, that was very.
Oh, we're not ending on that note. Okay.
Is that falafel?
I
don't think the break will be long enough.
I think at last called the food card. So yeah. Let's end the debate. Thank you for being a very great audience and participators in the debate. If you're not aware of it, this place is called Rumkraft, and we like to do stuff like this. This was an idea that Suna and Andreas came to us about and said, hey, can we do a debate about this, because we think it's important to discuss it. So if any of you guys have ideas for something like this, or something completely different that needs a place and some people who can help facilitate this, you're more than welcome to connect with us. That's one side of the story. The other side of the story is that we are an educational center. We're a school for electronic music programming, and also for how musicians can survive in this modern society that we have. So you can learn about taxation for musicians, how to form a company, how to send an invoice, all of this stuff. And it is it's the courses, the students that attend the courses, and the people who are members of Rumkraft. You can be a member for 100 crowns per month, and you can come down once a week, and you can borrow our controllers, sit and work in the space. And it's those guys who are paying for these events so that we can keep this stuff free. All right. We'll do a 25-minute break. There's really good falafel right over here. You can buy something to drink here, or have some water. We can make some tea or some coffee. And then there will be audio-visual experience where the Copenhagen Laptop Orchestra meets Motorsaw.
And please come back. We'd love to see you.
Yes, okay. Then you will experience this firsthand.
It will be so great to show you some of the concepts that we've been talking about today, and sort of interact with you. I know I will be around to talk about interaction and stuff afterwards.
Yes.
If any nerds.
And then the last thing, because right now I'm just wearing the commercial hat. If you want to sign up for a newsletter,
yes,
you can sign up for a newsletter if you're interested in any of our courses or whatever. We made this really awesome sign-up thing. I think it's the most business thing that we have, so I'm very proud of it. Otherwise, get some food, get some air, and we'll see you back at
6:30.
Yes, 6:30.
Thank you. Thank you for coming.
To the chat.
Yeah.
The internet.
Big up for the internet.
How many people were following it online?
3 all the way through.
Oh, cool.
And then actually sooner there's a follow-up thing for Matthias.
Okay.
Jeg kommer i tanke om det system, der virker uden das.
Ja, det kommer jeg også.
Nej, jeg har lyst til.
Okay, jeg follow up spørgsmål.
Det kan måske være nævnt, så kommer og kigger på det. Så stille og roligt. Ja, der er sådan en
We have mentioned a test.
Jeg er fuldstændig uenig med den første del.
Ja, men det er jo godt, det må vi jo snakke om så. Yes, det er noget af
Så kommer jeg ind og snakker om, hvad meningen er med underholdning. Det er jo underholdning, der
det må blive til næste fest.
Det er okay med
There's like luxury here, like everything here is like.
So where are you from?
Så er jeg helt enig med det, hvis jeg snakker om det. Men til elektronisk musik, som er det her, der er egentlig så ekspressivt i sig selv. Så har vi så handler det om at gå ud og visuelt performance.
Yes, he's another man. So she and to be.
Det kan godt være, at det ikke er nødt til at snakke om det, jeg faktisk det kan være, at vi kan tage op.
Nå, jeg går hen og siger,
Det er det arabiske madhus.
Er det nogenlunde sammen?
Ja, cirka.
Like the stuff you wanted to do.
That's the best part.
So we do right now it's just us. I think it's like 10 people worldwide music. It's named after the band Donut. We do a lot of like punk rock stuff.
But not only is it like
so it's like very huge. So I can say basically like the scale of it. So basically, we can send scale messages to each other and have different systems interpret like. And it will sort of call for messages from me. So I've set it up so that this system will say, "Oh, I want a new conversation. Play me that. Play me that scale number 4, man." And then his computer will request it for me, and I will send it to him. And that should work. It will do one output. And everything is like absolutely, and it's in musical terms as well. So it's not just requesting things. I'm requesting things that fucking need it now. Everything is now. So the whole bit is right now. We have just take it easy, guys. Here,
Yeah, once.
With this for so long. No, I mean, we have to there's what we want. Okay, that's up to you. If there's space. Oh, fuck, then we have
All of the red knows this. Jeg har lavet Jeg prøvede at instruere min stå op nu. Jeg tror ikke, der er plads. Det handler bare om, at jeg skal høre det. Så kan vi godt se det her. Så står du på sådan et Rasmus, du vil gerne tale.
Alle andre skal også kontrollere det.
Men så skal vi starte med at have det her væk. Ja, simpelthen Nok noget mere spiller musik, så jeg er også nødt til
First kind of contact is really fun.
Er det ikke nok?
Yeah, we want to move this to up here. Nice way.
Vi er sikre på, alle de der ting, det er altså også kunne sørge for, at det bliver
vi har kommunikeret via ting sygt meget. Men jeg har været metakommunikeret. Ja, og så er det lige det bliver ikke lavet andet end at tale om kriterierne omkring det. Det er generelt.
Ja, måske. Jeg skal lige høre de andre, der er her også. Hvis du er rigtig interesseret i den, vi skal en mail, eller du skal en mail.
Vi står sådan her, så sætter vi den på her, så skal vi kigge det meget på.
Men hvis du synes, der er flere steder, der skal være sådan en vi bliver sammen og være herovre. Okay, så er det vores projekter, så tager vi med mere. Så tager vi det. Så rykker I lidt længere ned.
Sådan.
No, yeah. The critter and yeah. Så fedt, mand. Det kan godt lide at få, når du folk på skolen. Jamen, det slår fedt.
Så har du det hele.
Ja, fedt, mand.
Så kan vi sætte strøm til, så kan vi gøre det lidt højere.
Ja, har I nok strøm?
Ja,
der skal også være en
hvis jeg roterer den vej, så kan jeg styre op.
Vi har den her ind eller ud.
Det sagde nogen også i går. Det sagde nogen også i går.
Og jeg skal bruge 2 strømstik.
Det har du. Så har vi...
Der får du noget strøm til din iPad. Thanks.
Love.
Så bare
stiller dig sådan lidt ned på enden her rundt om, måske. Du har den her til siden.
Ja, men det er godt sådan lidt, måske så også kommer plads. Kigger jeg den vej, eller? Altså,
hvis du kigger sådan...
Det er rart, fordi der er ekko. Ja, det må du godt. Ja, why not?
Hvor længe er det spillet? Hvor længe vil du gerne have, vi spiller? Jeg tror, det er sådan, at vi beder om, hvor længe vi skal spille.
Det er mere folk, der står eller sidder.
Sidder? Okay.
48 timer.
Ja.
Nu skal jeg lige komme til alle mine ting, der ligger hernede.
Jeg får fjerne lidt af mine.
Hvad var det? Vi sagde, at vi blev fjes. Nej.
Det lyder som sådan virkelig velkommen. Hvor end du er på madfaren. Nå, det er lige ved siden af. Ja. Jeg er så taknemmelig på det. Kan vi ikke sprede den her ud? Okay, nu fik I lige rullet den der række fra
Jeg har popular requests af, jeg har ikke fået en mail fra Kromer til patch, som jeg har hvis vi skal have som folk snakker om.
Jamen, det var egentlig også, det var rigtig idé, så så de her nice ord, vi havde lavet der. Så fik vi fat i nogle Hero Singapore. Og så fik vi lavet en hybrid af Hero Singapore og de der nice ord, de havde fået lavet, og så er det bare sådan, okay. Og så bruger de og er lidt svede, der bare så de sidder primært om dagen, og så kan vi gå til at lave de her ting om aftenen.
Jeg tror næsten
nogle papirer, der har været til som gjorde sådan noget.
Ja, det var en fortsætter. Fordi du har det der metro.
Og så var noget, vi til de også børn. Det er sådan noget om, altså da vi var hernede og kigge på lokalerne, havde vi lavet en forestilling om prostitution, så hele huset lignede et bordel. Der hang sådan erotiske billeder over det hele, og der var rødt lys i alle vinduerne, så der var sådan, det her var et sted.
Han har også noget op til
Vi tænker jo selvfølgelig, at det er her, vi skal være, som det første.
Så når du et stærsignal til mig, det er Tobias, der skal sætte ud til dig.
Yes, master.
Det er så den her, som er 6 og 7. Du gør det? Det er faktisk noget, jeg har lavet den, jeg vil gerne vælge.
Det er all good.
Det er all good.
Raz, har du hørt fra...
Det er jo åbenbart ikke, at der er nogen, der svarer.
Men det er sådan noget, også giver det.
Ikke sådan noget, vi kan konkurrere med nogen.
Man kan lige blive skyldig i mit billede. Og det er fint, at jeg har jo ikke brug for den, som jeg ser det til dig. Så skød den sådan pænt på tværs.
Ja, den var meget det vinklen var ret god. Jeg så det godt.
Det er min værd. Det er jo lige meget så. Det var jo også en
ja, ikke?
Det patch har det fantastiske navn First Shot.
Nice. Jeg tror, det er mere sådan et par sekunder.
No stress. Folk står og ryger, så no stress. Har du check to check over til mig?
Kan du ikke det lige her før? Nå, nej, det er ikke check. Du skal have noget af mig. Jeg har nogle...
Mini check til...
Vi kan bare gå ud af hovedtelefonudgang.
Så ligger den i kabel.
Så kan du bruge det her.
Ja.
Så kan du bare bruge det her.
You're ready.
Stuck in the fridge. Guys, I'd expect nothing less from you.
Welcome back.
Good to be here.
Thanks. Just from my mother in
Yeah. Actually, I got another one. Got this one. Yeah.
That's still not the next one.
Yeah. The other one was a little bit Swedish-ish.
I like that one.
Yeah, it's actually a Danish one.
Ja, tak for hjælpen med
They're actually probably considered nicer there than they are here. It's true, they're like a luxury brand in the US. You know the brand Carhartt? Here in, especially in Europe in general, it's sort of like a fashion, sort of like street fashion. Right? Was kind of street fashion, not cool anymore.
I don't. Yeah, it is. I mean, yes, I've seen people.
Yeah, like the caps are really popular, right? In the US, it's like it's construction workers. Like it's actually legit gear. Like they make tools, but that's that they don't have like a fashion. There's nobody wears it's all like literally like tool belts and.
I remember when I was younger, like. Everyone bought the pants, the working pants.
Yeah.
Structured pants.
Yeah.
Everyone
the carpenter pants with like the pockets here.
Yeah. That was fashion.
Yeah, I agree. They're fresh as shit back then. 98, 99, something like that.
They were nice because they were shiny. I remember
We didn't have trains. That sounds cool.
We were like, yeah, shiny. I had a pair as well, the shiny ones. Gray shiny.
Gray shiny ones? Those are your go out pants?
Yeah.
The go out and the gray shiny pants.
Er det Cuba eller OTT?
Det er ret. Det er ret.
Ja.
OTT. Ja, det er godt. Ret er det godt.
Det er fucking should be one in the corner.
Oh yeah.
Jeg ved ikke, man når man slukker et lys.
Shit is going down. I'm gonna elevate this.
You know.
That is a comfy chair.
Oh yeah.
This is the kind of chair that you don't want to have.
I was impressed that those guys actually got up.
I'm already hypnotized.
That was a really that was a live video, wasn't it?
Yes, it was.
Live video.
Live and good.
Yeah, that was very good. Yeah. I thought it would. I thought it would be a little less live.
Yeah, apparently. Yeah. It's interesting.
That was really good.
There was a lot of interesting points being brought up in two worlds. You don't have that much time to talk normally.
Yeah.
Thank you guys for coming. It was really good, man. And thanks for your input. Yeah.
Always curious to be in and to see what you're talking about sound.
Yeah, what's going on?
Yeah, what's going on in comparison last night.
Yeah,
but I was thinking because I didn't know the quality.
Yeah,
because I think it's interesting about like artists who get when you have to pay some taxes and sky.
Yeah.
Cigarette number. I think it's like the monks also.
It's hard.
It's heavy for me.
And it's not part of the regular school
No,
curriculum.
it's not like nobody tell you that.
Yeah.
I was thinking it's nice, but my husband had it work, so
it works the way that this is the in-house lawyer, and his specialty is copyright. And so he came to us and said, guys,
okay, that's nice.
People need to know this
So
stuff.
how often are you doing that? Like this courses or debates or
But it's like it's two sides of the same place, because most of it takes place down here. And one side is the courses that you sign up for and you follow them.
And it's like how long you follow the courses?
Well, the legal course that's called art and law is 3 times. Each time is 3 hours, and it's with one week in between. And then we have a music production course with Ableton Live.
Yeah, so on the website you don't check the website, you don't say how much because it's a replication, you don't say that.
Oh yeah, but it's under booking. But the thing is, we haven't. Huh? Yeah. The thing is, it's we haven't put up the next round of courses.
Okay.
That's why you can't see the prices.
Because I like to be interested about the law and
yeah,
we need to know how it works. Slow it down, it's example pros.
That's what it's all about, doing things right and not like
not to be concentrate nice shots and like that's nice to be fun to make a character, but you have to be also straight to the system and victory. But yeah, I'm really I'm considering to join the meetings or whatever you call it.
Yeah, did you leave your...
No, I didn't.
Okay, well please do. Because on the newsletter we will let you know when the next courses are open.
When do you think it's going to start?
Well, we're halfway through the first courses, so the next production courses won't start until at least 5 weeks. And then the art and law will begin shortly. In a couple of weeks.
On Wednesday.
In a couple of weeks. Your email. That's because we send out the newsletter via email. Yeah. It's practical courses where we have quizzes for all students, and then it's at different levels. So I mean, if you have some knowledge on it, then you can join like the medium level. Yeah. And that's when we do. For example, we're talking about having an emphasis course, and that would be like a weekend course. Or just if you're interested in taking courses in the weekend, that would be the one. Otherwise, the longer courses are running. The art law is right now it's 1,000 each for 9 hours. And then the others, the bigger courses, have 0.4 hours. 6,000. But if you are a member, then it's 10% discount. And it's based on. It's just important to know that it's based on the Danish legal system. So it's based on that you are paying taxes in Denmark. Yeah, we'll get everyone used to it. Everyone links that are coming up. Shortly with information about the next courses and all
view a perspective of just the language, because in French, and of course if we go to France, for me it would be always too expensive. But for me, when someone explains to me, I get confused. Yeah, I'm like, what? It has to, because everybody knows about taxes. Everybody's about different things.
Some people know, not even other things.
It's more like you have some people from the music, from the art,
yeah,
because people from whatever like someone was about the music industry can tell you some tricky things or learn how it works. And
yeah, it's all about showing people how to do it the right way, so that they don't make any errors or don't do it. Yeah, det är lugnt. Okay.
Mine's going a little bit sorry class. Yeah. Or, yeah. Why do I not remember that? And this time I did perfectly. Last time I saw me doing it and then
But it can be anything from very slow ambient in 4/4 or 1/4, as I like to play. Musician jokes, right? And then anywhere from hip hop to we've been playing a lot of techno lately. But I will. But
Actually, we have no idea what's going to happen.
Yeah, that's the point. We have no idea where we're going. But obviously we have some confinement. This isn't free jazz, and there are some people who are happy about that.
I remember once talking to you about that. Sometimes when doing what we're doing, making our own instruments, it's also about having the ability not to fuck up too much. No matter how you do it, then it will be somehow consistent.
It's like training wheels on a bicycle, like meticulously constructed over years. Yeah.
All right. Let's begin. I will begin by pressing play.
it was recorded, I guess, perhaps, or at least streamed.
It was recorded.
So it does exist somewhere in cyberspace, but otherwise, this was just for you, and no one else will ever have it. So this is yours. You can take it home and put it in your pocket, and enjoy it later. That sounded almost erotic.
Can we sell it?
You cannot resell it because it will stay in your heads like a disease. All right. Thank you for listening to us, and you've been great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, awesome performance, guys. Thank you very much, and apologies for the technicalities.
That is part of the thrill.
Well, those are just technicalities.
Those are technicalities. And again, thanks a lot for stopping by. It's really awesome. This is exactly why we're doing it, to share it with like-minded people. So you're welcome to hang around for a bit. We'll keep the spaceship open for 45 minutes more. Apart from that, you're welcome to get in touch, either with those guys or with us, whatever you would like to do. And we will share some of the stuff that we were talking about on the event page, so we can formulate some kind of paper with good tips and tricks for AV performances, what you could do when talking to a venue. Or just, it would be nice with your inputs as well. I'll try to write down some notes of what we went through today. Any questions about the performance or anything for these guys?
I'll be around. You can talk afterwards. So.
When's your next show?
We do not know because we suck at booking.
But at least I noticed 3 organizers in the audience today. It's up to you guys. Find it. Where there's a will, there's a way.
Yes. There should be a light switch like in there should be.
Is there a door switch somewhere? Jesus Christ! Yeah. Oh Lord! Ja, jeg elsker den figur, der bare kommer ud. Det kommer ligesom sådan flyvende ud til på her. Det er en af de få gange, hvor jeg faktisk her, hvor der skal ske noget nu. Intet